knowledge has really all come over the years from everything that I've done. Partly through racing, of course, there is simply no better way to learn about how a car is put together and how it all works than when you're racing. The big change, though, is in this move to EVs, because, of course, mechanical understanding is increasingly becoming redundant because we are now no longer talking about internal combustion engines. We're talking about electric powertrains and that drive. So my experience through racing is obviously incredibly useful. Having then started to work with manufacturers, I really began to understand how the industry operated and what the constraints were, how cars are built, how cars come to market, how cars need to be marketed, what people's concerns and hang-ups may be, what people like, because surprisingly, not everybody likes what I like. So it was really interesting beginning to work with them as well about the wider industry. Over the years, I've then had the privilege of working for some other major brands where I've looked at policy and government strategy. So all in all, everything that I know about this industry has come over time and through some of the wonderful brands that I've been able to work with. I never expected to be a racing driver. When I was at school and I looked towards motorsport, there were really no female role models for me to aspire to be anything like. You were really either a truckie or a mechanic. So I didn't ever expect that that's the way my career would progress. I was lucky enough that when I left university, I had always been racing, and I was approached by Channel 4, who wanted me to do a screen test to be a presenter because I knew about racing. I got the job, and then I was just lucky enough to always be able to combine my passion for motorsport with my broadcasting, and never needed to get a proper job. So Jaguar made the decision to enter Formula E. Formula E had been a series that had been running for a couple of years, and to begin with, it was very much scorned upon by the traditional motorsport community. I always looked at it and thought, this is really exciting. I'm hugely competitive. I'll race anything. It doesn't matter what it is. And I loved the fact that it was really pioneering this new technology. The whole problem with an internal combustion engine is that it really has reached the very end of its development cycle. There is very little more that we can actually squeeze out of the traditional configuration. So when you look towards an electric powertrain, obviously we're just at the very beginning of that journey and it's got a long path ahead. So Jaguar were looking towards this. The rules of the championship changed, which meant that manufacturers could now get involved and actually develop their own powertrain. The first 2 seasons, the way the rules were set up was that it was a closed championship, so you couldn't actually make any changes to the car. Everybody got the same car. So as soon as that fundamental shift in the regulations came into play, where manufacturers could now develop their own powertrain, it opened the floodgates for manufacturers to get involved. And I was lucky enough to be a part of it. So I've been part of the team since its inception. There have been 3 of us who are still on the ground. And it's been a fantastic journey because it's really a tremendous way of seeing how technology is developing at an incredibly fast pace. But more significantly, it's the only real race series that I'm aware of where you can directly transfer technology from the racetrack into road cars. Well, I'm a very competitive person, and whereas I was racing cars and I love cars and I still love cars and I still love internal combustion engines, I have children of my own and I'm very aware of how the world is changing and how we all need to really take a part in helping that change and accelerating that change. And as soon as EVs came to the fore and people really started talking about them, I was aware of how beneficial this was going to be for my children and my children's children. The technology is exciting because we have just started the journey. We don't know where it's going to go. Nobody pretends that today we have all the answers for our mobility moving forwards, but what we do know is that we're moving on the right track. We know we need to decarbonize our atmosphere. We know we have an emissions problem. And we know that resources involved in everything electronic, whether it be computers or cars or phones, those resources are finite. So we know we have to look for solutions. What I love about the whole racing thing, where it combines in this, is that there is simply no better environment for the smartest people in the world to come up with clever solutions than in a racing environment, because everybody just wants to beat everybody else. So the first thing to think about with an EV versus a petrol car is all about how the power is delivered to those wheels, whether it be front or rear wheels, wherever the drive is actually delivered. Now, with an internal combustion engine, obviously you have a curve and you have gears, and you have to make your way up through the gearbox in order to reach maximum speed. The big difference with an electric vehicle is that that torque is instantaneous, and you really don't have to go through the gears. So you put your foot on the accelerator and the car will just keep accelerating until it reaches its maximum speed. What this translates to for you as a driver is this incredible sensation. People say that EVs aren't very exciting, and of course you don't have the engine noise that you're traditionally used to in an internal combustion engine, and of course the vibration that comes along with that, that sort of gives you that sort of sense of speed, if you like. Well, what you do have is this incredible punch of power, and you get a load of different noises. Now, the noises, some people hate it. Personally, I absolutely love it, because you do get the sort of high-pitched whine of the electric motor. But what you hear in a road car is a lot more of the actual noises that are going on around you. So particularly in a race car, because you don't have any of the noise deadening that you would traditionally have in a road car, you can hear the transmission, you can hear the tires, you can hear the car actually moving on the tarmac. So it's a very different sensation to driving an internal combustion engine. And I would argue to anybody that it is no less exciting. It's funny, I think the industry is becoming far more progressive as we make this move towards EVs. Jaguar have a saying, from cogs to code. Traditionally, if you wanted to get involved in the car industry, as I said, you really needed to become a mechanic or an engineer. And it appears to many to be very messy, very manual, and therefore I think put a lot of females off entering that particular industry. Nowadays, when we're looking at EVs, it's all about code, it's all about the technology, and it is far more inclusive for women. Now, I think also with the huge push towards STEM subjects in school, both for boys and for girls, it's really encouraging girls into this area where, particularly, I mean, when I think about it from my day when I was at school, we weren't encouraged to go into the sciences at all. And you only ever went into them if you were really bright. And if you were really bright and pushed, you really excelled at the sciences, you were pushed into the sort of medical stream. So I think these days it's all changed. I have a daughter who's now going off to university, and she's doing a master's in maths because she wants to be some sort of engineer. I think it's tremendous how it's going. And actually, interestingly, for International Women in Engineering Day, that was a few weeks ago, I was speaking to some of the women working in the associated industries. And it was funny because we all recognize how the increased diversity in the workforce now, with more women on board, helps in more ways than just having a better depth of knowledge and more people who are able to do the job, because women have very different problem solving capabilities as well, and they work very differently in a team to men. So it actually helps the industry grow and develop at an incredible pace.